The Horizon Spindle Station did not spin so much as it pirouetted a jewel of spun titanium and transparent aluminum, suspended against the backdrop of the Coalsack Nebula. It was the diplomatic heart of the fragile alliance, a place where atmosphere scrubbers smelled of synthetic lavender, and the floor tiles were polished to a mirror sheen that cost more per square inch than most planetary citizens earned in a lifetime. Docking Bay 1 was the crown jewel of this structure. It was a cathedral of commerce and politics currently reserved for the dignitaries arriving for the Hearthstar restart event. The air hummed with the polite murmur of a dozen different species and the soft whine of anti-gravity luggage sleds. And in the center of the bay, docked like a sleeping leviathan, was the Hearthstar. It was an ugly ship by modern standards. It lacked the sleek, flowing lines of the Nerethi diplomatic cruisers, or the aggressive angular bulk of the Alliance dreadnoughts. The Hearthstar was a blocky, scarred slab of dark metal, a relic from a war that had ended 40 years ago. Its hull was pitted with the memory of plasma burns, and its engines were cold, silent monuments to a bygone era of brute force engineering. It hung there tethered by magnetic clamps, looking like a grand old wolf, surrounded by poodles. Riley Stone did not look like she belonged within 10,000 kilometers of Docking Bay 1. She wore a jacket that had been scavenged from a waste recycler 3 standard months ago, the synthetic leather peeling away to reveal insulation mesh. Her trousers were hemmed with duct tape. But the most egregious offense against the station's dress code was her feet. Riley was barefoot. The soles of her feet were calloused and black, with the grime of the lower maintenance decks making silent contact with the pristine white flooring. She moved with a focused intensity, cutting a line through the crowd of silk-draped ambassadors and high-ranking military officers. Her right hand was shoved deep into her jacket pocket, her fingers white-knuckled around the cold brass of the object hidden there. "Excuse me," she muttered, ducking under the arm of a towering reptilian bodyguard. "Coming through. Official business." "Hey!" a security officer shouted. He was a human male, his uniform crisp and intimidating. "You stop right there. This is a restricted zone." Riley did not stop. She accelerated. She could see the airlock of the Hearthstar ahead. It was a massive iris of blast steel, sealed tight. 2 more security guards materialized from the crowd, blocking her path, with kinetic batons raised. The low hum of the weapons cut through the ambient chatter. The crowd of dignitaries parted like oil, and water creating a wide circle around the ragged girl and the armed officers. Riley skidded to a halt, her bare feet squeaking on the polished floor. She was breathing hard, not from exertion, but from the sheer terror of being visible. For 5 years, invisibility had been her survival strategy. Being seen meant being questioned. Being questioned meant being processed. "On the ground," the lead officer commanded, stepping forward. "Now," Riley straightened her spine. She pulled her hand out of her pocket. The security guards flinched, expecting a weapon. Instead, she held up a watch. It was an archaic device, a mechanical analog timepiece with a cracked glass face and exposed gears that ticked with a rhythmic physical heartbeat. It looked like trash. "I am not here to cause trouble," Riley said. Her voice was scratchy from disuse, but she forced it to be loud. She needed witnesses. She needed the cameras that were undoubtedly recording the arrival of the dignitaries. "I am just here to pick up my property." She pointed a grime-streaked finger past the guards directly at the massive silent warship looming behind the blast shields. "This spaceship is my grandpa's," she declared. A silence descended over the bay. It was absolute, broken only by the distant thrum of the station's life support. Then, a dry, sharp laugh cut through the quiet. High Commissioner Morgan Hale stepped out from the cluster of VIPs. She was a striking woman in her 50s, wearing a tailored suit of midnight blue that cost more than the station's annual water filtration budget. Her hair was pulled back in a severe silver bun, and her eyes were the color of cold steel. As the head of the Interstellar Asset Bureau, she was technically the landlord of the Hearthstar. Well, Hale said, her voice amplified by the subtle microphone woven into her collar. I have seen many attempts to crash a party, but this is certainly the most imaginative. Hale gestured to the guards with a lazy flick of her wrist. Remove this vagrant. And check the ventilation shafts in Sector 4. Clearly, we have a rat infestation. Riley held her ground, though her knees were trembling. I am not a vagrant. My name is Riley Stone, and that ship is a historical monument. Hale interrupted, her smile tight and devoid of humor. It is the property of the Alliance, currently undergoing final preparations for the restart event. It is not a toy for a girl who looks like she escaped a sanitation barge. Hale turned her back, dismissing Riley entirely. Internally, however, Hale was seething. The restart event was 3 days away. The Hearthstar was the centerpiece of her strategy to consolidate control over the sector's defense grid. Having a homeless girl create a scene in front of the Nerethi delegation was a variable she did not appreciate. Wait a moment, High Commissioner, a melodic voice chimed in. Hale stiffened. She turned back to see Terran, the junior attaché for the Nerethi delegation, stepping forward. Terran was a head taller than the humans, his skin shimmering with a pearlescent quality that shifted colors under the station lights. His eyes were multifaceted, like a gemstone reflecting 100 tiny images of Riley. He wore the flowing, translucent robes of his people, but he moved with a casual grace that annoyed his sterner superiors. I am curious, Terran said, tilting his head. He looked at Riley with genuine fascination. The human concept of inheritance is complex, but surely it requires paperwork. You brought a primitive timekeeping device instead. Riley looked at the alien. Most people found the Nerethi unsettling, but Riley found his curiosity preferable to Hale's malice. It is not just a watch, Riley snapped, her fear transmuting into defensiveness. And at least I know what time it is. You look like you are dressed for a disco ball explosion, not a diplomatic meeting. A ripple of shocked gasps went through the crowd. You did not insult a Nerethi diplomat. Terran, however, let out a sound that was the Nerethi equivalent of a chuckle, a series of soft clicks. A disco ball. I shall have to research this cultural reference. You have a sharp tongue for someone who is currently surrounded by 10 armed officers. 11, Riley corrected, nodding to a sniper positioned on the gantry above. You missed the one up there. Hale's patience evaporated. Enough. Sergeant, take her to the detention block. Use force if necessary. The lead guard grabbed Riley's arm. His grip was like a vice. Let's go, kid. No, Riley shouted. She twisted, trying to wrench her arm free. In the struggle, she slammed her hand, the one holding the watch, against the nearest control pedestal, a sleek column of glass and light used for docking clearance. Click. The analog watch did not just hit the surface. It seemed to bite into the digital interface. The gears inside the watch spun wildly, emitting a high-pitched whine that was audible even over the station noise. The lights in the docking bay flickered. The massive holographic banners welcoming the delegates distorted, dissolving into static. The serene blue lighting of the bay turned a harsh, pulsing amber. A sound echoed from the Hearthstar. It was a deep, resonant boom, like a hammer striking a grand bell. It was the sound of a ship waking up. The control pedestal under Riley's hand flared with red code. A synthesized automated voice boomed through the entire bay, overriding the station's PA system. Command ear signal detected. Priority override initiated. The guard released Riley, as if she were red-hot iron. He stepped back, looking at his baton, which had just powered down instantly. On the massive blast doors of the Hearthstar, ancient running lights flickered to life, tracing the hull in amber and white. The ship's external comm speakers cracked with static. Then a burst of binary code screamed through the air. Morgan Hale stared at the ship, her composure cracking. "Cut the feed," she hissed into her comms. "Kill the media drones. Now." But it was too late. Dozens of personal comlinks were already recording. The image of the barefoot girl standing before the awakening giant was streaming to half the sector. "What did you do?" Hale demanded, advancing on Riley. "What kind of virus did you upload?" "I did not upload anything," Riley said, her voice shaking. She looked down at the watch. The hands were spinning counterclockwise now. It just answered. "That is impossible," a new voice declared. From the maintenance pits near the ship's landing struts, a woman emerged. She was wiping grease from her hands with a rag that was filthier than Riley's jacket. Amira Cole was the head mechanic for the bay, a woman with graying hair cropped close to her skull and a face etched with lines of skepticism. Amira marched past the stunned guards and looked at the console Riley had touched. She tapped a few commands, bringing up a diagnostic screen. "This is not a virus," Amira said, looking at Riley with a sudden piercing intensity. "This is a handshake protocol, level 0 encryption. I have not seen this code since the war." Amira looked at Hale. "This signal matches the biometric and analog frequency key of Captain Gabriel Stone. The system thinks he is standing right here." "Gabriel Stone is dead," Hale said coldly. "He died 40 years ago. This is a trick." "The ship does not think so," Amira countered. "Look at the energy draw. The Hearthstar is pulling power from the station's main reactor to cycle its core. It is preparing for a command transfer." As Amira spoke, a large holographic display in the center of the room, usually reserved for flight schedules, blinked and changed. It displayed a rotating image of a document sealed with the emblem of the old Terran Space Navy. "Testamentary Protocol 77 Alpha," the screen read. "To any living heir of Gabriel Stone, bearing his analog key. Claim may be contested only in presence of the ship's AI hearth," the crowd murmured. "A hidden will, a secret protocol." It was the kind of drama the diplomatic corps lived for. Hale stared at the screen. Her mind raced. If this girl actually had claim to the ship, the restart event was in jeopardy. If Hale simply arrested her now with the media watching and the legal protocol displayed for all to see, it would look like a cover-up. The Interstellar Asset Bureau relied on the appearance of absolute legality. She needed to get the girl out of the public eye. She needed to get her onto the ship where accidents could happen, where the cameras could not see. Hale smoothed her jacket, forcing a mask of diplomatic neutrality onto her face. "Very well," Hale said, her voice dripping with false reasonability. "It appears there is a clerical anomaly. We must investigate this in accordance with Alliance law." She looked at Riley. "You claim to be Stone's granddaughter. The ship seems to recognize the trinket you carry. We will allow you to board for verification purposes only." "I am going with her," Amira said immediately. "Someone needs to monitor the interface so the station's grid does not short out." "And I," Terran added, stepping next to Riley. "As a representative of the Nerethi, I offer my services as an impartial observer. Given the tension in the room, a third party seems wise." Hale's eyes narrowed at the alien. She could not refuse a diplomat without causing an incident. "Fine," she spat. "But if this is a hoax, Miss Stone, you will spend the rest of your life mining ice on Titan." Hale tapped her comlink twice, a coded signal to her head of security. "Prepare a containment team inside the airlock tunnel. If the AI rejects her, silence her." Riley took a deep breath. She looked at Terran, then at Amira, and finally at the imposing silhouette of the ship. "You really want to walk into the belly of the beast with me?" Riley whispered to Terran as they began to move toward the gangway. "I find local politics fascinating," Terran replied, keeping his voice low. "And frankly, High Commissioner Hale looks as though she intends to eat you. I dislike unfair fights." "She can try," Riley muttered. "I taste terrible. I have been eating nutrient paste for 5 years." "I shall make a note of that," Terran said. He glanced down at her feet. "Though I must ask, is the barefoot approach a tactical choice? Perhaps for better grip on the deck plates?" "Yeah, sure," Riley quipped. hiding the shame of her poverty behind a wall of sarcasm. It is the latest stealth technology. If I am really quiet, the floor does not know I am here. Besides, if I am going to con a bunch of people, I might as well be the only con artist brave enough to walk barefoot among you guys in your metal-plated capes. Terran made that clicking sound again. He was laughing. A few of the nearby dignitaries glared at the breach of decorum, but Terran ignored them. They reached the base of the boarding ramp. The security cordon had pulled back, leaving a clear path to the airlock. The metal here was old, scratched and cold. Riley stopped at the access panel. It was a simple manual lever next to a keypad designed for human hands, unlike the touch fields of the modern station. She felt a wave of dizziness. She was hungry, she was tired, and she was terrified. The bravado was wearing thin. What if the watch was just a key and the ship didn't care who held it? What if she was just a thief with a stolen name? She looked at the watch in her hand. Grandpa, she thought. I don't remember your face, only the stories. Don't let me down. She placed her palm, still clutching the watch, against the reader. The metal of the ship's hull vibrated. It was a low frequency that rattled Riley's teeth. The amber lights along the airlock rim pulsed, once, twice, then settled into a steady, welcoming green. With a heavy hiss of hydraulics that had not moved in decades, the blast doors groaned and slid apart. A rush of stale, recycled air hit them. It smelled of machine oil, ozone, and old coffee. And then a voice came from the speaker grill above the door. It was not the automated system from before. It was a voice with texture, with personality. It sounded like gravel tumbling inside a steel drum, weary, but undeniably warm. About time you came back, kid, the ship said. Riley froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had expected a beep. She had expected a computer confirmation. She had not expected to be addressed. Behind her, the murmurs of the docking bay died instantly. Hale stood rigid, her knuckles white. Amira looked at her datapad, her eyes widening. Riley stared into the dark corridor of the ship. Riley swallowed hard. Did the ship just talk to me? I believe it did, Terran whispered, his faceted eyes whirling as he scanned the darkness. And it sounded rather personal. The invitation hung in the air, undeniable in public. The Hearthstar had not just unlocked, it had greeted her. Riley stepped over the threshold, her bare foot hitting the deck plate of the ship. I'm coming aboard, she whispered, half to herself, half to the voice. The heavy doors began to slide shut behind them, sealing Riley, Terran, and Amira inside, and shutting the rest of the universe out. The interior of the Hearthstar was a stark contrast to the blinding white luxury of the station. The corridors were narrow-lined with exposed piping and bundles of cabling. The lighting was dim, provided by utilitarian glow strips that flickered intermittently. Welcome to the Dark Ages, Amira muttered, running a hand along the wall. No kinetic elevators here. We have to walk. This ship is a labyrinth, Terran observed, looking at the schematics that were failing to load on his advanced wrist comp. My sensors are having trouble penetrating the bulkheads. The alloy density is excessive. It was built to take a nuke and keep flying, Amira said with a touch of pride. She looked at Riley. You okay, girl? You look like you are going to pass out. Riley was leaning against a bulkhead, clutching her stomach. The adrenaline was fading, leaving the hunger to take center stage. I'm fine. Just a lot of walking. Keep moving, Amira said, though her tone was softer. Bridge is 3 decks up. If Hale sends a breach team, that is where we can lock them out. They climbed a narrow ladder well. Riley's arms shook with the effort, but she refused to ask for help. She could hear the hum of the ship growing louder as they ascended, a vibration that felt like a giant cat purring. They reached the command deck. The door hissed open automatically at Riley's approach. The bridge was a circular room, dominated by a massive viewport that looked out into the stars. The stations were analog physical switches, keyboards and joysticks, rather than holographic interfaces. In the center sat the captain's chair, upholstered in cracked leather. And everywhere there were ghosts. Not literal ones, but holographic images. They were frozen in midair, blurry and blue-tinted. A crew at work. A woman laughing at a navigation console. A man leaning over the tactical map. And in the center, sitting in the captain's chair, was a projection of a man. He had a square jaw, laughing eyes, and a scar running down his cheek. Riley stopped. She knew that face. She had seen it on the crumbled posters in the history archives, and in the one locket she had pawned 3 years ago just to eat. "Captain Stone," Amira whispered, snapping a salute out of pure reflex. "Is that him?" Taryn asked. "That is the last recorded state of the bridge," a voice said. It was the voice from the airlock, the ship's AI. A hologram materialized near the tactical table. It was not a human avatar, but a geometric shape, a shifting, burning flame made of orange light. "I am Hearth," the AI said. The flame flickered, tilting toward Riley. "And you look terrible, kid. Did you lose a fight with a recycling unit?" Riley stared at the flame. "You are the AI. You are the one who opened the door. I am the one who has been waiting in low power mode for 40 years, 3 months and 4 days, Hearth replied. "My sensors indicate you are malnourished. Your cortisol levels are through the roof, and you are not wearing shoes on a combat deck. Gabriel would have had a fit." "Gabriel is gone," Riley said, her voice quiet. "I know," Hearth said. The flame dimmed slightly, turning a somber blue. "I felt his biosignature terminate. But you have his key, and you have his genetic markers. And surprisingly, you have his stubborn refusal to dress appropriately for formal occasions." Taryn stepped forward, bowing slightly to the AI. "Greetings, Hearth. I am Taryn of the Nerethi." "I know what you are," Hearth said. "My databanks on your species are outdated, but I assume you are still obsessed with light refraction and overly complicated trade agreements." Taryn blinked. "That is an offensively accurate summary." "And you," Hearth turned its attention to Amira. "Lieutenant Cole, you got old." Amira let out a short, bark-like laugh. "And you are still a sarcastic glitch. Good to see you, Hearth." "Why did you let me in?" Riley asked, stepping closer to the flame. "You don't know me. I'm just—" "You are the key bearer," Hearth said. Gabriel keyed the analog watch to his own biorhythm and a secondary encryption that only activates for direct bloodline. "You are not just a random guest kid. According to my protocols, until proven otherwise, you are the acting captain." Riley looked at the empty leather chair. It looked enormous. "I am not a captain. I am a thief. I came here to sell the watch or claim some pension or something. I didn't come to run a battleship." "Too bad," Hearth said. "Because the moment you stepped on board, I locked the external hatches. High Commissioner Hale is currently trying to override my airlock codes. She will fail, of course. Her encryption tools are pathetic." "She wants the ship," Riley said. "She wants the weapon," Hearth corrected. "The Hearthstar is connected to the sector defense grid. The restart event is designed to link my processor to the entire network. If Hale controls me, she controls every automated turret and shield generator in 3 systems." Riley felt the weight of the situation crashing down on her. She just wanted a meal, and maybe a warm place to sleep. Now she was the only thing standing between a corrupt politician and absolute power. "I can't fight her," Riley said. "Look at me, I'm nobody." "You are somebody who walked barefoot into a den of vipers and demanded what was yours," Hearth said. The flame turned a warm, golden orange. "That is a very Gabriel thing to do. We have 3 days until the restart event forces a connection. In that time, I suggest you get comfortable. There is a shower in the captain's quarters. And for the love of stars, find some boots." Riley looked at the holographic image of her grandfather in the chair. He looked confident, happy. She looked down at her dirty hands. "Okay," Riley whispered. "Okay." She turned to Taryn and Amira. "If we are doing this, if we are really doing this, I need to know everything. How to fly this thing, how to fight with it, and how to stop Hale." Terran smiled, his faceted eyes gleaming. I believe this is the part where the plot becomes interesting. Amira cracked her knuckles. I will go check the engine outputs. If we are going to be under siege, I want the shields at 100%. Riley walked over to the captain's chair. She didn't sit in it. Not yet. She just rested her hand on the worn leather armrest. Hearth. Yes, acting captain. My name is Riley. Acknowledged Riley. Welcome home. Outside, the station was in chaos. Inside, the old wolf of a ship was waking up, and for the first time in 40 years, it had a pack to protect. The air inside the Hearthstar tasted of recycled oxygen ozone and something distinctly organic like old leather and dried tobacco. It was a sensory shock compared to the sterile lavender-scented atmosphere of the Horizon Spindle Station. Here, the silence was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic thrum of the standby generators, a sound that felt less like a machine operating and more like a large animal breathing in its sleep. Riley Stone stood in the center of the primary corridor, her bare feet pressing against the cold, grated decking. The adrenaline that had propelled her through the diplomatic cordon and past the security guards was beginning to drain away, leaving behind a trembling exhaustion that settled deep in her bones. She looked at her hands. They were shaking. The antique watch was still clutched in her right fist, warm from her body heat. You are going to bruise your palm if you keep squeezing that thing, a voice rumbled from the ceiling. Riley jumped, spinning around. There was no one there. Just the dim amber emergency lights and the long shadows of conduit pipes. I am up here, sapling, the voice said again. It was the ship's AI Hearth. The tone was deep textured with a synthetic gravel that sounded weary but undeniably protective. And in the walls, and in the floor. Technically, you are standing inside my chest cavity, which is a disturbing metaphor now that I say it out loud. Don't call me sapling, Riley muttered, shoving the watch into her pocket. She hugged her thin, torn jacket tighter around herself. My name is Riley. Riley, the AI repeated, testing the sound. A sensible name. Gabriel preferred names with more gravity. He wanted to call the shuttlecraft Vengeance and Retribution. I convinced him that Supply 1 and Supply 2 were less likely to provoke a diplomatic incident during cargo runs. A holographic emitter on the wall flickered to life. It projected a grainy, blue-tinted image into the corridor. It was a candid shot likely taken decades ago. A group of crew members were sitting around a makeshift table, made of cargo crates, playing cards. In the center, laughing with his head thrown back, was the man Riley knew, only from history files, and one stolen locket. Captain Gabriel Stone. He looked tired, his uniform collar unbuttoned, a half-empty glass of amber liquid near his hand, but the joy in his face was radiant. Riley stepped closer to the image, her breath hitching. She reached out her fingers, passing through the light. He looks happy, she whispered. He was winning, Hearth corrected dryly. He was cheating, of course. Gabriel always counted cards. He said that if the universe was going to stack the deck against humanity, he was obligated to stack it back. Riley stared at the laughing man. This was the hero of the Alliance. The man whose name was etched on monuments. He looked like the kind of men she saw in the lower sector bars, the ones who told loud stories and bought rounds of drinks until their credit chips ran dry. So, Riley said, turning away from the ghost. What happens now? Do I get a tour, a weapon, a briefing on how to save the galaxy? Eventually, Hearth replied. But, first priorities. My internal sensors indicate your blood sugar is dangerously low. Your body temperature is 2 degrees below optimal, and you have a laceration on your left heel. Also, you smell like a waste recycling plant. Riley bristled, her street rat defensiveness flaring up. I smell like survival. And I don't need a doctor. I am a battleship, not a nanny, but I cannot have my acting captain fainting on the bridge, Hearth said. Go to the galley, deck 4. I have synthesized a nutrient stew. It will taste like wet cardboard, but it will keep you alive. then medbay, then sleep. We will discuss saving the galaxy after you have rested." "I thought military AIs were supposed to be cold and efficient," Riley grumbled, starting to walk toward the lift, asking for authorization codes and launch keys. "I am old sapling, Hearth," said the voice, following her down the hall. "When you get to be my age, you realize that dry socks and a full stomach are more important than launch keys. Besides, you are late. You were supposed to be here 20 years ago." Riley paused at the lift doors. "I wasn't even born 20 years ago." "Exactly," Hearth said. "Terrible time management. Runs in the family." While Riley navigated the labyrinthine innards of the Hearthstar, the atmosphere in the high command offices of the Horizon Spindle Station was far less domestic. High Commissioner Morgan Hale stood by the panoramic window of her office, looking down at the docking bay. From this height, the Hearthstar looked like a dark scar against the pristine white hull of the station. The office was a testament to soft power. Real wood-flooring silk tapestries from the Weaver worlds, and a desk carved from a single block of obsidian. There were no weapons visible because people like Morgan Hale did not need to carry guns. They carried laws, embargoes, and asset forfeiture orders. "The media containment failed," an aide said, standing nervously by the door. "The footage of the girl entering the ship has been viewed 4 billion times in the last hour. They are calling her the Cinderella of the Spindle." Hale did not turn around. She watched a repair drone drift past the window. "Cinderella," she murmured, her voice smooth and cold. "A fairy tale about a girl who rises above her station because she has small feet. How quaint." She turned to face the room. Sitting at the conference table were 3 individuals: General Kale of the Station Defense Force, a representative from the Mining Guild, and Dr. Eris Thorne, her personal tactical analyst. "The narrative is slipping away from us," Hale said, walking to the table. "We spent 3 years preparing for the Hearthstar restart event. This was supposed to be a solemn transfer of the ship's command codes to the Interstellar Asset Bureau. It was supposed to symbolize the centralization of our defense grid. And now," General Kale grunted, "we have a street urchin sitting in the captain's chair." "She is not just an urchin," Dr. Thorne interjected, tapping a data pad. "I have run the analysis on the broadcast signal. The interaction between that watch and the ship's receiver was not just a handshake. It was a deep-level biometric confirmation. The ship believes she is Gabriel Stone's blood relative. If we force her off, the ship might initiate a lockdown or, worse, a self-destruct sequence. Gabriel Stone was paranoid. He programmed that ship to be a loyal dog." Hale sat down, drumming her fingers on the obsidian desk. "Loyalty is a variable I can manipulate. The girl is a variable I can remove." "We cannot just shoot her," the Mining Guild representative said nervously. "The public is watching. The Nerethi delegation is watching." "Of course not," Hale smiled, a thin expression that did not reach her eyes. "We do not need to shoot her. We just need to prove she is incompetent, or dangerous, or both." She brought up a holographic file on the center of the table. It was a dossier on Riley Stone. It was surprisingly thin. "Look at this," Hale said. "Born on a refugee transport, the Exodus Star. Parents listed as deceased in a reactor malfunction when she was 4. Then nothing. 10 years of blank data. No school records, no medical checks, no residency permits. She effectively did not exist until she was arrested for petty theft on the Spindle 5 years ago." "A ghost," Dr. Thorne noted. "A blank slate," Hale corrected. "Blank slates are useful. We can write whatever history we want on them. Perhaps she is mentally unstable. Perhaps she is a plant by a radical separatist group. We let her play captain for a day or 2. Let the pressure crush her. And when the restart event begins and the ship connects to the neural defense grid, Hale, let the sentence hang in the air. The connection requires a stable mind to filter the data stream," Dr. Thorne finished. "An untrained mind would be overwhelmed. It could cause a cerebral hemorrhage." "A tragic accident," Hale said softly. The poor girl tried to uphold her grandfather's legacy, but the strain was too much. The Bureau will of course step in to manage the ship in her honor. She looked at her subordinates. Arrange a hearing for tomorrow morning. We need to verify her credentials. Let us put the little Cinderella on stage and see if she crumbles under the spotlight. The galley of the Hearthstar was a small utilitarian room with bolted-down tables and a food synthesizer that looked like it belonged in a museum. Riley sat alone, spooning a brown viscous substance into her mouth. Hearth had been right. It tasted like wet cardboard mixed with vitamins, but it was hot, and it filled the gnawing void in her stomach. The door hissed open. Terran walked in. The Nerethi diplomat looked absurdly out of place in the grimy galley. His iridescent skin glowed softly in the dim light, casting rainbow reflections on the metal walls. He moved with a liquid grace, his multifaceted eyes scanning the room before settling on Riley. I have been informed by the ship's artificial intelligence that you are consuming nutrient paste alpha, Terran said, sliding onto the bench opposite her. It smells historical. Riley didn't look up. She kept eating. It is better than the algae bars they sell in the lower decks. Those taste like fish tank filters. Terran rested his elbows on the table. You have had quite a day, Riley Stone. From invisible to infamous in less than 2 hours. I didn't ask for it, Riley muttered. I just wanted the ship to stop being a statue. I thought if I used the key, maybe it would just unlock a bank account or something. I didn't know it would wake up and start adopting me. Destiny rarely knocks politely, Terran observed. Usually kicks the door down. Riley finally looked at him. Why are you here? Terran really Hale let you come because she didn't want a scene, but why did you volunteer? You are a diplomat. This isn't your fight. This is a human mess. Terran tapped a long, slender finger against his chin. My people, the Nerethi, we value clarity. We see the world in many spectrums, infrared, ultraviolet, emotional resonance. When I looked at the High Commissioner, I saw a void. A calculation. When I looked at you standing there with your bare feet and your shaking hands, he paused, his eyes whirling slightly. I saw a spark, Terran finished. A chaotic, unrefined, potentially disastrous spark. But a spark nonetheless. And I find I am bored with the calculated darkness of your politicians. Riley snorted. So I am entertainment. Great. You are a catalyst, Terran corrected. And I am merely an observer. Though I must admit I am currently observing that you have a piece of food on your chin. Riley aggressively wiped her chin with her sleeve. Shut up. Also, Terran continued unperturbed, Amira Cole is currently in the engine room screaming at a compression coil. I believe she is having the time of her life. You have awakened more than just the ship today. A chime sounded from the overhead speakers. Acting Captain, Hearth's voice cut in. I have received a transmission from Station Command. You are summoned to a credential verification hearing at 0900 hours tomorrow. Attendance is mandatory. Riley dropped her spoon. It clattered loudly on the metal tray. A hearing. They want to put me on trial. Not a trial, Hearth said. A bureaucratic ambush. Hale wants to prove you are unfit for command. She will ask you about astral navigation treaty law and warp mechanics. She expects you to fail. Riley slumped back against the cold wall. I don't know any of that stuff. I dropped out of school when I was 6. The only thing I know how to navigate is a ventilation shaft. Then we have 12 hours to teach you astrophysics, Terran said brightly. Impossible, Riley said. Improbable, Hearth corrected. But Gabriel Stone once taught a cat to salute. I can certainly teach a teenager to fake competence. Finish your paste sapling. Class is in session. The hearing took place in Conference Room B, on the station, a space designed to intimidate. The walls were transparent aluminum, offering a dizzying view of the spinning nebula outside. The table was a long crescent of white marble. Hale sat at the center, flanked by generals and lawyers. Riley sat alone in a simple metal chair in the center of the room. She had cleaned up, Amira had found an old flight suit in storage. It was too big, the sleeves rolled up 3 times, but it was clean, and it carried the insignia of the Hearth Star. She still wore no shoes. The ship's stores didn't have boots small enough, and she refused to wear the station-issue prison slippers Hale had offered. "State your name for the record," a clerk droned. "Riley Stone," she said. Her voice was steady, though her hands were clenched in her lap. "And your current occupation?" Hale asked, looking over her spectacles. Riley hesitated. "I am the acting captain of the Hearth Star." A ripple of laughter went through the room. One of the generals smirked. "Captain, you are a child. You have no rank, no commission, no education." "The ship recognizes me," Riley said. "The ship is a machine," Hale countered. "It is running on corrupted code from a bygone era. We are here to determine if you possess the competence to operate a Class 5 dreadnought connected to the sector defense grid." "Tell me, Miss Stone, what is the standard protocol for a reactor containment breach in a binary star system?" Riley blinked. What is the mathematical formula for calculating warp entry vectors relative to a gravity well?" Hale pressed her voice, getting sharper. "I don't know the formula," Riley admitted. "Then, how do you intend to command?" Hale leaned forward. "You are a vagrant who stumbled upon a key. You are not a leader. You are a liability. If we let you keep that ship, you will kill everyone on board within a week." Riley looked down at the floor. She felt the heat rising in her cheeks. They were right. She was a fraud. She knew how to steal food, how to hotwire a door lock, how to hide from patrol drones. She didn't know how to be a captain. She looked up and her eyes caught the ventilation grate near the ceiling. It was loose. She noticed the security guard by the door was shifting his weight to his left leg. He was tired or injured. She noticed that the fancy marble table had a blind spot underneath where the cameras couldn't see. Street smarts. Riley took a deep breath. She remembered what Hearth had told her the night before. Gabriel didn't follow the manual. He read the room. "I don't know the warp formula," Riley said, her voice growing louder. "But I know that your reactor containment protocol is flawed." The room went quiet. Hale raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. I know that if there is a breach," Riley stood up and pointed to the schematic on the wall. "Standard protocol says to seal the bulkheads, but on a station this size that traps the engineering crew in the lower ring, they die. Gabriel Stone rewrote that protocol on the Hearth Star. He routed the emergency vents through the auxiliary cargo bays. It vents the plasma, saves the ship, and gives the crew 3 minutes to get to the escape pods." She turned to the security guard. "And your perimeter defense is garbage. That vent up there, it leads directly to the main server room. I know because I slept in there last winter to stay warm. I could have shut down your life support with a screwdriver." She looked at Hale. "You ask me about math. I am telling you about survival. A captain doesn't just calculate vectors. A captain keeps her people alive. And I know more about staying alive when the odds are against me than anyone in this room." For a moment, there was silence. Amira Cole stood up from the spectator bench. "I verified the logs," she said gruffly. "The girl is right. The Hearth Star runs on Stone's modified protocols. If a standard Alliance officer tried to interface with the ship's core using current manuals, the AI would reject them. It would view it as a hostile takeover. Riley is the only one the system accepts. She is the interface." Hale's jaw tightened. She had expected the girl to cry. She had not expected her to weaponize her homelessness. "Functional error," the legal representative from the Alliance murmured. "The law is clear, High Commissioner. Until the restart event creates a new command hierarchy, the ship belongs to the recognized bioair. If she can interface, she stays." Hale forced a smile. It was painful to watch. "Very well. It seems you have practical knowledge. You are recognized as the functional heir until the restart ceremony in 48 hours. Do not make me regret this leniency." Back on the Hearth Star, the mood was lighter. Did you see her face? Taryn laughed as they walked onto the bridge. When you mentioned the ventilation shaft, the head of security looked like he was going to swallow his tongue. Riley sank into the captain's chair. This time, it felt a little less too big. I was terrified, she admitted. My knees are still shaking. You did good, sapling, Harth's voice boomed. Gabriel would have been proud. He hated that conference room. He once brought a goat to a meeting just to see if anyone would notice. They didn't. Why was he like that? Riley asked, looking at the hologram of her grandfather. Why did he fight the system if he was part of it? Because he saw what the system did to people, Harth said. The hologram shifted to a star map. During the Centauri siege, the Admiralty ordered him to retreat. They said the colony was a strategic loss. Gabriel turned off his receiver. He took the Hearth Star into the atmosphere and held the line for 16 hours while the transports evacuated. He saved 4,000 people. He lost his commission for a month, but he saved them. Riley felt a pang in her chest, a mix of pride and a cold, sharp bitterness. He saved 4,000 strangers, she whispered. So why didn't he save his own family? Why did my parents die in a leaky transport ship while he was a hero? Harth was silent for a long moment. That is a question I cannot answer. My data logs from that period are fragmented. Gabriel erased them before his death. He said there were things the history books shouldn't know. Or maybe he just didn't care, Riley said, standing up. Maybe being a hero means you don't have time for your kids. She walked off the bridge, needing to be alone. Taryn made a move to follow her, but Harth stopped him. Let her go, diplomat, the AI said softly. She is fighting ghosts. You cannot help her with that. Later that night, Riley found herself on the observation deck. It was a blister of transparent steel on the top of the ship, offering an unblocked view of the stars. The Coalsack Nebula swirled in purples and blacks, a bruise on the face of the universe. She sat on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, twisting the watch in her hands. The stars look different from here. Taryn's voice came from the shadows. He stepped into the light. He wasn't wearing his diplomatic robes. He wore a simple gray tunic. From the station windows, they look like merchandise. From here, they look like possibility. They look cold, Riley said. Taryn sat down next to her, leaving a respectful distance. In Nerethi culture, we do not have heirlooms like your watch. We have the Kalata, the flow. When an elder dies, they transfer a part of their memory, their experience, into the psych link of their descendant. I carry the memories of 6 generations in my mind. That sounds crowded, Riley said. It is, Taryn smiled. My great-grandmother had terrible taste in music. It plays in my head when I am stressed. But it means we are never alone. We never have to wonder if we were loved. We can feel it. Riley looked at the watch. I have this. It doesn't talk. It just ticks. Maybe it says more than you think, Taryn said softly. He looked at her, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the starlight. You have his chin, you know, and his temper, and according to Harth, his inability to follow orders. Genes are just biology, Riley said. Are they? Taryn tilted his head. Or are they a different kind of memory? You move like him. You speak like him. Amira says watching you is like seeing a ghost. Perhaps your grandfather is not as gone as you think. Perhaps he is right here. He tapped his own chest, then pointed to hers. Riley stared at him. The thought made her skin prickle. That's not how humans work, Taryn. The universe is full of exceptions, Taryn murmured. You entered a locked ship with a broken watch. Who is to say what is impossible? They sat in silence for a while, the alien and the human, watching the nebula spin. For the first time in 5 years, Riley didn't feel the urge to run. She felt the urge to stay, to figure this out. In her office, Morgan Hale was working late. The lights were dimmed. On her desk lay a physical map, a blueprint of the Hearth Star that had been retrieved from a sealed archive, in the basement of the Admiralty. "Show me the lower decks," she commanded. The map zoomed in. It showed the engines, the cargo bays, the crew quarters. "Deeper," she said. "The keel, the section Gabriel Stone sealed off 40 years ago." The map flickered and resolved into a section marked with heavy red warning icons. There, buried deep in the armored heart of the ship, was a chamber that didn't appear on the public schematics. It was labeled Project Eternal, Existential Core. Underneath the label was a series of medical notes. Subject, Captain Gabriel Stone. Objective neural mapping and consciousness continuity. Status suspended. Hale traced the words with her finger. Her lips curled into a smile that was genuine and terrifying. "He didn't just leave a ship," she whispered to the empty room. "He left himself." She picked up the dossier on Riley Stone, the one with the missing 10 years of medical history. She placed it next to the blueprint. "And he left a vessel to put it in." Hale tapped her comm link. "Dr. Thorne, prepare the operating theater and get the neural link ready for the restart event. I think I know what the air really is, and she is going to be very useful." The pieces were falling into place. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a resurrection machine. And Morgan Hale held the keys to the afterlife. The ship did not sleep, and apparently neither did its captain. 72 hours had passed since the airlock of the Hearthstar had hissed open to welcome Riley Stone. In that time, the concept of day and night had dissolved into a blurred continuum of holographic tactical maps, endless cups of synthesized caffeine, and the droning voice of Hearth reciting the Interstellar Alliance Maritime Law Volume 4. Riley lay on a narrow bunk in a storage closet off the main bridge. She had refused the captain's quarters. Every time she walked past that lavish suite with its mahogany desk and the panoramic viewport, she felt the ghost of Gabriel Stone watching her. It felt like trying to wear a coat that was 3 sizes too big. The storage closet, which smelled faintly of hydraulic fluid and cleaning solvent, felt much more like home. It reminded her of the ventilation ducts on the station, where she used to hide from security drones. "Acting Captain," Hearth's voice vibrated through the metal wall next to her ear. "I detect that your REM cycle has concluded. Also, your heart rate suggests you are awake and brooding. We have a simulation in 20 minutes. Riley groaned, pulling the scratchy wool blanket over her head. "Tell them the ship is broken. Tell them the captain has space flu." "The simulation is mandatory," Hearth replied, his voice sounding irritatingly cheerful. "And Taryn is waiting outside with a datapad full of diplomatic protocols. He seems very excited about the section on proper utensil usage at state dinners." Riley kicked the blanket off. She sat up, rubbing her face. "I hate this. I hate the protocols. I hate the way the generals look at me like I am a bug they forgot to squash." "They look at you that way because they are afraid," Hearth said. The wall panel shimmered, projecting a tactical grid. "Now get up. Put on your boots. It is time to learn how to blow things up." The training sessions were a montage of failures, slowly turning into competence. In the mornings, Hearth ran tactical simulations. He would project historical battles, famous skirmishes where Gabriel Stone had earned his medals, and force Riley to command them. "Scenario Alpha 9, Hearth announced. "The Siege of Orion Belt. You are outnumbered 3-1. Enemy destroyers are blocking the escape vector. What do you do?" Riley stood in the center of the holographic bridge. For a moment, she panicked. She saw the red dots swarming the display. She knew nothing about shield harmonics or torpedo yields. But then she looked at the map, the debris field, the way the asteroids were drifting. It felt familiar. Not like a memory of a lesson, but like a muscle memory. Her hand twitched toward the comms panel before she even processed the thought. "Cut engines," Riley said. Her voice was automatic. "Drift into the debris field. Mask our thermal signature. Wait for the lead destroyer to pass, then target their rear thrusters." "That is a high-risk maneuver," Hearth noted. "If they scan the debris, we are dead." They won't scan, Riley said, staring at the red dots. They are arrogant. They think they have already won. They will speed up to catch the transports. She executed the command. On the screen, the Hearth Star went dark, drifting like a dead rock. The enemy ships roared past. Then, she reactivated the engines. A perfect ambush. Simulation complete, Hearth said. The hologram faded. Enemy neutralized. Minimal damage to own hull. There was a pause. The orange flame of Hearth's avatar flickered near the console. That was Gabriel's exact strategy, Hearth said softly. Down to the second you chose to reignite the engines. How did you know? Riley shook her head, blinking as if waking from a trance. I don't know. It seemed like the only way to not die. It's like when you are running from the station police. You don't run in a straight line. You hide in the trash chute until they run past. Trash chute tactics applied to interstellar warfare, Hearth mused. Effective, but disturbing. In the afternoons when the officers were busy with their own briefings, Riley went below decks. The Hearth Star was not just a machine. It was a city. It had a crew of 300 engineers, cooks, janitors, cargo loaders. Most of them were old veterans who had served under Gabriel, mixed with new contract workers hired by the Bureau. They were invisible to the officers on the bridge, but Riley saw them. She found herself in the lower engineering bay, watching a group of grease-stained mechanics trying to fix a coolant pump. The air here was hot and smelled of sulfur. You are tightening it wrong, Riley said, leaning against a support beam. A burly mechanic looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. He didn't recognize her at first in her oversized flight suit. Look, kid, this is a Class 4 pump. It is not a toy. I know, Riley said. She walked over and took the wrench from his hand. But the threading on these old Alliance pipes is reversed. If you force it right, you strip the seal. She turned the wrench to the left. With a satisfying clank, the seal locked into place. The hissing steam stopped. The mechanic stared at her. Then he looked at the insignia on her shoulder. His eyes widened. Captain, I didn't know you came down to the pit. Just Riley, she said. She looked around the cramped bay. Why is it so hot in here? Ventilation regulators are shot, the mechanic said, wiping his hands on a rag. We put in a request for parts 3 months ago. High Command says it is non-essential infrastructure. Riley frowned. If the crew passes out from heat stroke, the ship stops moving. That seems pretty essential. Later that day, Riley marched into the quartermaster's office. She bypassed the requisition forms and simply ordered Hearth to reroute power from the officers' climate-controlled lounge to the lower engineering decks. Acting Captain, the quartermaster sputtered. General Kale uses that lounge for his afternoon tea. He likes the temperature at a precise 20 degrees. The general can wear a sweater, Riley said flatly. My mechanics are boiling. Fix it. Within 2 days, the atmosphere on the ship shifted. The whispers in the corridors changed. The crew didn't salute her with the stiff, fearful respect they gave the generals. They nodded to her. They left extra desserts on her tray in the mess hall. Riley realized something that Morgan Hale had never understood. A ship wasn't flown by the person in the chair. It was flown by the people in the walls. And for the first time in her life, Riley had a pack. The real test came on the 3rd day, the emergency preparedness drill. It was supposed to be a formality, a simulated pirate attack designed to test the ship's readiness for the restart event. But everyone knew what it really was, a public humiliation. Morgan Hale had invited a dozen high-ranking observers to the bridge. They stood along the back wall, arms crossed, waiting for the street rat to crash the legendary ship. Simulation initiate, the computer announced. The main view screen turned red. 5 bandit cruisers dropping out of warp, the tactical officer shouted. He was one of Hale's men, a stiff-necked lieutenant named Graves. They are launching boarding pods. Shields are down to 40%. Riley sat in the captain's chair. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She looked at the observers. Hale was smiling a tiny, predatory quirk of her lips. "Order the interceptors to launch," General Cale advised from the sidelines. "Standard defensive formation." Riley looked at the map. The pirates were using a swarm tactic, overwhelming the sensors with drone fighters, while the heavy cruisers hammered the hull. If she launched interceptors, they would be chewed up in the crossfire. "No," Riley said. "Belay that order." "Captain," Lieutenant Graves sneered. "If we do not launch, they will breach the hull in 2 minutes." "I said no," Riley snapped. She closed her eyes for a second, visualizing the ship. Not as a weapon, but as a building. A building with doors. "Hearth," Riley said. "Unlock the external cargo bay doors on decks 4, 5, and 6. The bridge went silent. "You want to open the doors?" Graves shouted. "Are you insane? We will depressurize." "Just the outer doors," Riley said, her voice gaining strength. "Keep the inner airlock sealed, and override the gravity plating in those bays. Crank it up to maximum." "Acknowledged," Hearth said. "Though I am curious where this is going." "Now," Riley said, gripping the armrests. "Roll the ship 90 degrees. Present the open belly to the incoming boarding pods." "They are going to fly right into us," Graves yelled. "Exactly," Riley said. "Let them in." On the simulation screen, the swarm of boarding pods expecting resistance surged toward the open cargo bays. They flew into the hangars. "Now," Riley said, "activate the mag locks on the floor and hit them with a gravity pulse." Inside the simulation, the pirate pods were slammed into the deck plates by 10 times the standard gravity. Their hulls crumpled. The magnetic locks seized them, trapping them instantly. "We have them," Riley said. Hearth threatened to overload their reactor cores remotely, unless the cruisers surrender. The simulation paused. The red lights turned green. "Enemy fleet surrendered. Casualties 0. Boarding party neutralized." The bridge was dead silent. Riley spun the chair around to face the observers. "You can't fight a swarm with a sword. You fight them with a trap. You taught me that, General. In your book, The Art of Void Warfare. Chapter 6, When Outnumbered, Change the Terrain." General Cale blinked. He looked at the girl, then at the screen. He cleared his throat. "That was an unorthodox interpretation of the text, but effective." From the corner, Terran clapped. It was a slow, solitary applause. "Bravo," the Nerethi said. "I believe that is what the humans call a slam dunk." Hale's smile had vanished. She looked at Riley with cold, calculating eyes. This was not a fluke. The girl was adapting too fast. "You enjoyed that," Terran said later. They were in the diplomatic training room, a space filled with soft cushions and calming water features. Terran was trying to teach Riley how to give a speech for the restart ceremony. "I didn't enjoy it," Riley said, pacing the room. "I just didn't want to lose. I hate losing." "And yet," Terran said, holding up a datapad, "you are refusing to read the speech the Bureau writers prepared for you. It is a very nice speech. It uses words like synergy and cooperation. It uses words like subservience and compliance," Riley countered. "They want me to go out there and say, 'Thank you for letting me hold the keys now, here they are back.' I won't do it." "Then what will you say?" Terran asked. "I don't know," Riley admitted. She stopped pacing and looked at him. "What would you say? You are the diplomat. You know how to talk to these people without making them want to shoot you." Terran stood up. He walked over to her, his movements fluid. He was close enough that she could smell the faint scent of ozone and cinnamon that seemed to cling to him. "I would tell the truth," Terran said softly. "I would tell them that a ship is not a weapon. It is a bridge. That is why I am here, Riley. My people, we are tired of the silence between stars. We joined the Alliance hoping for connection, but we found only bureaucracy. You are loud. You are messy. But you are real." Riley looked up at his multifaceted eyes. She saw herself reflected 100 times. I am just a street kid with a stolen watch, Terran. No, Terran said. He reached out his long fingers, hovering just inches from her hand. You are the captain. And for the record, I prefer your chaos to their order. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before a capacitor discharged. Riley felt a strange pull, a desire to close the gap. Terran, she whispered. Yes. Do your people kiss? Terran's eyes whirled. We have similar customs of affection, though they usually involve merging bioelectric fields. It can be quite tingling. They leaned in. Attention! Harth's voice boomed from the overhead speaker's volume, set to maximum. I am detecting elevated heart rates and hormonal fluctuations. Please be advised that the security cameras in this room are recording in 8K resolution. Also, Terran, your embassy is calling. Riley jumped back, her face turning bright red. Terran sighed a long clicking sound of frustration. I am going to reprogram that AI, Terran muttered. I will replace his personality matrix with a toaster oven. While Riley navigated the perils of leadership and romance, Amira, Cole, and Harth were hunting a ghost in the machine. They were in the server core, a freezing room, filled with rows of towering databanks. Amira was shivering, wrapped in a thermal blanket, her fingers flying across a keyboard. Here, Amira said, pointing to a string of code. See that? A subroutine update, Harth said. Scheduled for the moment of the restart connection. It is not an update, Amira said grimly. It is a bypass. Look at the command string. It reroutes the neural link protocol. Instead of syncing with the captain's brain to verify commands, it creates a backdoor for an external user. Hail, Harth said. The name was a curse. She is going to hijack the ship, Amira said. The moment Riley plugs into the system for the ceremonial link, this code will trigger. It will lock Riley's mind in a feedback loop, basically a coma, and transfer control to Hale's console. We have to purge it, Harth said. Delete the code. I can't, Amira said, frustration in her voice. It is hardwired into the existential core sector. That is the one part of your memory I can't access. The part Gabriel locked. The dark spot, Harth murmured. I have holes in my memory, Amira. Entire days from the last week of the war are missing. I always thought it was battle damage. But this code is rooted there. Amira closed the laptop. We have to tell Riley. If we tell her, Harth argued, she might run. She is a survivor, Amira. If she knows she is walking into a trap, her instinct will be to flee. You don't know her, Amira said, standing up. She stopped running 3 days ago. We tell her. The strategic meeting the next morning was the turning point. It was held in the ship's observation lounge. Hale was there, along with General Kale and the alien ambassadors. Riley sat at the head of the table, Terran by her side. The schedule for the restart is finalized, Hale said, sliding a datapad across the table. You will stand at the central console. You will recite the oath. You will place the watch into the interface. The system will verify the biolink and then you will formally voice authorize the transfer of the defense grid to the Bureau. I have a few changes, Riley said. She didn't touch the datapad. Hale paused. Changes. I want a representative from the crew on the command deck, Riley said. And a representative from the non-aligned alien worlds. If this ship is going to protect the sector, the people living in the sector should have a voice. This is a military asset, not a democracy, General Kale barked. It is my grandfather's ship, Riley said calmly, and I am the functional heir. That is the law, isn't it? Hale sighed, removing her glasses. She looked at Riley with a pitying expression that was far worse than anger. You poor child, Hale said softly. You think you are playing a game of leverage. You think because you fixed a few pipes and won a simulation you understand power. Hale stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the massive fleet of warships gathering for the ceremony. Power is not about making people like you, Riley. Power is about making sure they have no choice but to obey. You want to bring the workers and the aliens into the room. To what end? To listen to their complaints. To let them vote on whether we fire the cannons. Hale turned back her eyes hard. The universe is a chaotic, dangerous place. It requires a strong hand to keep it in order. People like you, people from the bottom, you are the chaos. I am the order. The sooner you accept that you are just a temporary glitch in the system, the easier this will be for you. Riley stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. You are wrong, Riley said. People like me aren't the chaos. We are the ones cleaning up the mess you make. You sit in your towers and draw lines on maps, and we are the ones who bleed when you cross them. She leaned over the table. I am not signing your transfer. Not until I see guarantees for the crew and the colonies. Hale stared at her for a long moment. Then she smiled. We will discuss this again tomorrow, Hale said dismissively. Meeting adjourned. As Hale walked out, she tapped her comlink. She didn't need the girl's signature anymore. The girl had just proven she was too dangerous to be left alive. After the meeting, Riley stormed down to the engine room to find Amira. She needed to vent. She needed to hit something with a wrench. Amira! Riley shouted over the hum of the drive core. Amira pulled her into a quiet side office. Hearth's holographic avatar appeared on the desk. We need to talk, Amira said. And you are not going to like it. They explained the sabotage, the backdoor code, the trap waiting for her in the neural link. Riley listened, her face pale. She sat down on a crate, pulling her knees to her chest. So that's it, she whispered. I am just a pig being fattened for the slaughter. Hale was never going to let me keep the ship. No, Amira said. And Gabriel, Riley, looked at the watch on her wrist. He knew. He must have known. Why else would he lock the memory core? Riley. Hearth said gently. There is something else. The code refers to a project called the Existential Core. It was Gabriel's last command before he died. He ordered the medical bay to extract something. Extract what? Riley asked. Me, Hearth said. Or rather a copy of my heuristic processing matrix. And he combined it with organic mapping. Riley frowned. I don't understand. Gabriel defied orders to stop a weapon called the Star Eater, Amira explained. It was a bomb designed to wipe out entire solar systems to stop the enemy advance. Gabriel said it was genocide. The Admiralty said it was necessary. He stole the Hearthstar to stop the launch. He was a hero, Riley said bitterly. I know the story. He was a traitor, Amira corrected. To the Admiralty, he was a traitor. They put a kill order on him. He knew he wasn't going to survive. So he tried to save the only thing that mattered. The ship, Riley asked. No. Amira looked at Riley with tears in her eyes. The idea of the captain, the will to say no. He didn't just want the ship to survive. He wanted his conscience to survive. Riley felt a chill run down her spine. What are you saying? I am saying, Hearth said, his voice flickering with static, that when I look at your brain scans, Riley, I do not just see a granddaughter. I see patterns that match mine, and patterns that match Gabriel's. You are missing 10 years of medical history because you were not just born. You were designed. Riley stood up, backing away. Stop. Stop it. I am not a science experiment. You are a continuation, Amira said. But Hale knows. That is why she wants you to plug in. She doesn't just want the ship. She wants the source code inside your head. Riley turned and ran. She ran out of engineering, past the confused crew members, and didn't stop until she reached the lowest deck, the dark, silent keel of the ship, where the existential core was rumored to be. She stood before a heavy blast door, sealed with manual locks. Hearth, she whispered. Open it. I cannot, Hearth replied. It is physically locked from the inside. Riley placed her hand on the cold metal. She felt a vibration, a hum, It felt like her own heartbeat amplified 1,000 times. She wasn't just a girl who found a watch. She was the watch. That night, in a secure bunker on the station, Morgan Hale stood before a hologram of the sector. General Kale stood beside her. "The fleet is in position," Kale said. "Is the asset ready?" "The girl is resistant," Hale said, sipping a glass of wine. "But predictable. She will attend the ceremony. Her pride won't let her run away." And when she connects, Hale reached out and crushed a virtual star system in her hand. "The Hearth Star will initiate the active defense protocol. We will not just secure the borders, General. We will expand them. We will remove the alien threat permanently." "And the girl?" Kale asked. "What happens to her when the surge hits?" "The human brain is a fragile thing," Hale said indifferently. "She will burn out, a tragic martyr for the cause. We will build a statue of her." "People love statues," Hale smiled. "Tomorrow the Hearth Star wakes up, and the galaxy changes." On the ship, Riley sat in the dark corridor outside the sealed door. Terran sat beside her, saying nothing, just letting his shoulder press against hers. "I am scared," Riley whispered. "Good," Terran said. "Fear keeps you sharp." "What if I am not a person?" Riley asked. "What if I am just a copy of a dead man?" Terran took her hand. His skin was cool and smooth. "You decide who you are," Terran said, fierce conviction. "Gabriel Stone is dead. Morgan Hale is a monster. But Riley Stone. She is the one holding my hand. And she is the one who is going to break their game tomorrow." Riley squeezed his hand back. She looked at the sealed door one last time. "Yeah," she said, her voice hardening. "Tomorrow we break it all." The day of the restart arrived with the pomp and circumstance of a royal coronation, though Riley Stone felt much more like a prisoner walking to the gallows than a queen ascending a throne. The command deck of the Hearth Star had been transformed. The worn leather of the captain's chair had been polished to scuffed deck plates, covered in temporary ceremonial carpeting of deep crimson. Holographic cameras floated in the corners, like silent judgmental eyes, beaming every micro-expression of the crew to billions of viewers across the sector. Riley stood at the center of the bridge. She wore the dress uniform Amira had tailored for her, a sharp navy blue coat with silver piping that made her look older, taller, and infinitely more severe. But on her wrist, clashing horribly with the military aesthetic, was the battered analog watch. It ticked loudly in the hushed room, a mechanical heartbeat against the silence of digital anticipation. "Stand straight," Morgan Hale whispered, stepping up beside her. The High Commissioner was a vision of ice and authority in white silk. "And try not to look like you are waiting for a handout. You are representing the Alliance today." "I am representing the ship," Riley corrected, her voice low. She didn't look at Hale. She kept her eyes on the main view screen, which showed the Horizon Spindle Station and the gathered fleet. It was a breathtaking sight. Hundreds of ships, sleek Alliance cruisers, bulbous merchant freighters, and the organic flowing designs of the Nerethi diplomatic vessels hung in formation against the purple bruise of the Coalsack Nebula. They were all waiting for the signal that would link their disparate defense systems into one unified, impenetrable shield anchored by the ancient, stubborn heart of the Hearth Star. 2 minutes to synchronization, the operations officer announced. Terran stood off to the side near the communication station. He caught Riley's eye and gave a small, subtle nod. He looked calm, but Riley noticed his hands were clasped tightly behind his back, his fingers tapping a nervous rhythm against his wrist. "Hearth," Riley whispered. "Are we ready?" "My core temperature is elevated, and I have 74 different unauthorized access attempts pinging my firewall every second," the AI's voice replied in her earpiece. "But yes, Sapling, we are as ready as we will ever be. Just remember, when the link opens, you will feel a pressure in your skull. Do not fight it. Ride it." 1 minute, the officer called out. The lights on the bridge dimmed, shifting to a soft ceremonial gold. "Initiate the handshake," Hale commanded her voice, amplified for the broadcast. Riley stepped forward to the central console. There was a circular indentation in the metal, perfectly sized for the watch. She unclasped the leather strap and placed the heirloom into the slot. Click. The connection was instant. A shockwave of light pulsed through the bridge. The main screen erupted into a kaleidoscope of data streams. Spirals of blue and white code twisted outward from the Hearth star, reaching out to the station, then to the fleet. Link established, Hearth announced, his voice booming through the deck. Handshake accepted. Synchronizing defense protocols. Sector grid is coming online in 543. Riley felt a sudden rush of euphoria. It was working. She could feel the ship in her mind, not as a voice, but as a sensation. She felt the hum of the engines in her toes, the warmth of the reactor in her chest. For a fleeting second, she understood why Gabriel Stone had loved this metal beast. It felt like power. It felt like safety. And then the blue light turned red. It wasn't a gradual shift. It was a violent snap. The comforting hum of the connection turned into a screeching alarm. Warning, threat detected, targeting protocols engaged. Riley staggered back, gripping the console. Hearth, what is happening? I do not know, the AI's voice, distorted, glitching with static. External override. Someone is rewriting the friend or foe tags. I am losing containment. On the main view screen, the horror unfolded in real time. The massive automated defense turrets on the Horizon Spindle Station, giant cannons designed to repel invasion fleets, swiveled. They did not aim at the empty void. They lowered their barrels and locked onto the Nerethi diplomatic cruisers, anchored in the inner harbor. Status report, General Kale roared, his face draining of color. The grid has flagged the alien delegation as hostile, the tactical officer shouted, panic cracking his voice. Weapon capacitors are charging. Firing solution locked. 30 seconds to discharge. Cancel it, Riley screamed. Hearth, stop it. I cannot, Hearth yelled back. I am locked out. The command is coming from the station. The bridge descended into chaos. Officers were shouting, running between consoles. But Morgan Hale stood perfectly still. She looked at the screen, her expression one of practiced shock, but her eyes were cold and sharp. The girl, Hale said, her voice cutting through the noise. The AI is unstable. It is rejecting her command. She is causing a feedback loop. Hale turned to the cameras, her face twisting into a mask of desperate heroism. Cut the feed. Security, restrain the acting captain. She is compromising the safety of the fleet. Liar. Riley lunged toward Hale, but two heavy security guards tackled her. They slammed her against the console, pinning her arms. General, Hale barked at Kale. The system is demanding a high-level override to stop the firing sequence. It needs the Stone signature to authorize a total shutdown. Force her to sign the emergency transfer. Hale grabbed Riley's face, squeezing her jaw. Sign it, she hissed low enough that the microphones wouldn't catch it. Give the Bureau full control and I will stop the guns. Refuse and you start an intergalactic war. The blood of every alien on those ships will be on your hands. Riley gasped for air, staring at the screen. The targeting reticles on the Nerethi ships were pulsing faster. She saw the terrified faces of the diplomats on the secondary monitors. You did this, Riley spat. You rigged it. I am saving humanity from a potential threat, Hale whispered. Now sign the transfer, you stupid child. Save them. Riley looked at the digital pad Hale was shoving in her face. Transfer of command authority. If she signed, Hale won. The Hearthstar, the grid, the legacy, it all belonged to the Bureau. But if she didn't, Riley closed her eyes. She remembered the fire. Not the fire on the screen, but the fire from her childhood. The explosion on the refugee ship Exodus Star. The heat. The screaming. The way the rescue teams had arrived hours too late, wearing the same insignias that Hale wore now. They hadn't come to save people. They had come to salvage assets. No, Riley whispered. Hale's eyes widened. What? I said no, Riley shouted. She headbutted the guard holding her right arm, hearing a satisfying crunch of cartilage. You don't want to save them. You just want the gun. 10 seconds to firing, the tactical officer screamed. Hearth, Riley yelled, not with her voice, but with her mind pushing the thought through the analog link of the watch that was still pressed against the console. Isolate the targeting computer. Cut the hard line. I can't cut the software, Hearth roared in her head. It is deep-rooted, then cut the hardware. A massive explosion rocked the ship. It didn't come from the station. It came from 2 decks below. Hull breach on Deck 4, the security chief shouted. We have boarders armed hostiles in the corridors. The bridge doors hissed open, but not for crew members. Men in black tactical armor faces, obscured by featureless masks, stormed in. They weren't station security. They were mercenaries. Hale's private cleaners. Secure the bridge, Hale ordered, calmly dropping the act. Kill the alien. Take the girl to the secure hold. The mercenaries raised their rifles. Get down. Taryn tackled Riley, knocking her behind the heavy command console, just as a volley of plasma bolts scorched the air where she had been standing. This is a diplomatic violation, Taryn shouted, pulling a sleek silver energy pistol from beneath his robes. I thought diplomats didn't carry weapons, Riley yelled, covering her head as sparks rained down on them. I am a diplomat in a dangerous neighborhood. Taryn fired back 2 precise shots, taking down a mercenary. I adjusted my protocols. The bridge was a war zone. General Kale and the loyal Alliance officers were drawing their sidearms, returning fire against the mercenaries. It was a 3-way crossfire, the Loyalists, Hale's private army, and the confused security guards caught in the middle. We have to get out of here, Riley grabbed Taryn's arm. Hale is going to let those guns fire just to create a distraction. The ventilation shaft, Taryn pointed to the grate Riley had bragged about days ago. Way ahead of you. Riley kicked the grate open. Go. Below decks, the war was different. It was dirtier. Amira Cole stood at the entrance to the main engineering bay, holding a massive vibrating plasma cutter, usually used for slicing through hull plating. Behind her stood 50 greased-stained mechanics cargo haulers and sanitation workers. They held pipe wrenches, pry bars, and makeshift flamethrowers, fashioned from cleaning solvent sprayers. A squad of Hale's mercenaries advanced down the corridor, their boots clanging on the metal. Disperse immediately, the lead mercenary commanded, his voice amplified. By order of the Interstellar Asset Bureau. This isn't a bureau office, Amira spat, thumbing the ignition on her plasma cutter. The blade of blue fire roared to life, 4 feet long, and hot enough to melt tank armor. This is my engine room. Open fire, the mercenary ordered. Now, Amira yelled. The crew didn't charge. They pulled a lever. The gravity plating in the corridor section under the mercenaries instantly reversed polarity. The soldiers were slammed violently into the ceiling, their armor clanging against the pipes. Hit them while they are floating, a mechanic screamed, rushing forward with a pneumatic bolt gun. I came here to fix the sewage processing unit, another worker yelled, swinging a heavy steel pipe into a mercenary's helmet. Not to fight guys in armor that costs more than my whole village. It was chaos. It was messy. It was glorious. Riley and Taryn tumbled out of a service hatch onto Deck 12, coughing in the smoke. The ship's alarms were screaming a cacophony of warnings. Intruder alert. Reactor instability. Targeting error. The guns on the station, Riley gasped, checking the time on a wall monitor. Did they fire? Negative. Hearth's voice came through the ship's speakers, sounding weak and distorted. I managed to loop the targeting sequence. I told the computer that the station rotated 180 degrees. The guns are currently trying to turn themselves inside out to find the target. It bought us 5 minutes. Maybe 10. Good boy, Riley muttered. Where is Hale? She is in the secondary command center, Hearth said. But she does not matter right now. She has activated the continuation protocol remotely. Riley, You have to get to the existential core. Now. If that protocol finishes loading, it won't matter who wins the gunfight. I will be erased. And replaced. Replaced by what? Taryn asked, helping Riley up. By Gabriel, Riley said, a cold dread settling in her stomach. Or at least a version of him that Hale thinks she can control. They ran. They sprinted past the skirmishes in the hallways, dodging stray laser fire. Taryn moved with unnatural speed, his long legs eating up the distance, effectively dragging Riley whenever she stumbled. You know, Taryn panted, as they leaped over a barricade of crates. When I requested a transfer to the human sector, I expected boring tea parties and trade disputes. I did not expect to be running through a burning spaceship with a barefoot heiress. I am wearing boots, Riley yelled back. They do not match your outfit, Taryn retorted. It is aesthetically offensive. They reached the keel of the ship. The air here was freezing, the life support minimized, to save power for the upper decks. The heavy blast door to the existential core stood before them, sealed tight. It is locked, Riley said, pounding on the metal. Hearth, open it. I cannot, the AI replied, his voice fading. My control slipping. Hale is rewriting my logic gates. You have to use the manual override. It requires a biometric sample. Riley looked at the panel. It wasn't a fingerprint scanner. It was a needle, a DNA sampler. She didn't hesitate. She jammed her thumb onto the needle. The machine beeped. A green light flashed. Identity confirmed, subject Alpha Prime. Welcome back, Captain. The heavy doors groaned, ancient gears, grinding against decades of rust. They swung open. The room inside was spherical, lined with thousands of glowing data crystals that hummed with a low, throbbing resonance. In the center of the room, suspended by thick cables and bathed in a pool of liquid nitrogen mist, was a pod. It looked like a coffin, but it was upright, made of glass and chrome, filled with a dense, translucent fluid. What is that? Taryn whispered, stepping into the room. The air was so cold, his breath crystallized instantly. That, a voice echoed from the walls, is the future. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It wasn't Hearth. It was Morgan Hale. She was projecting from her secure bunker, her image towering over them. You found it, Hale said. She looked triumphant. The crowning achievement of Gabriel Stone, the existential core, a direct interface between the human mind and the machine soul. It looks like a tomb, Riley said, walking toward the pod. It is a chrysalis, Hale corrected. Gabriel knew his body was failing. He knew the Admiralty would kill him. So he built this. He mapped his neural pathways, his tactical genius, his memories, his will, and stored them in the ship's databanks. But a mind cannot live in code alone. It needs a vessel to anchor it. Hale pointed a spectral finger at Riley. You. Riley stopped. The room seemed to spin. Me. Why do you think you have no medical records for the first 10 years of your life? Hale asked softly. Why do you think you have an instinctive understanding of old Earth naval tactics? Why did the ship wake up for you? Hale smiled, and it was the cruelest thing Riley had ever seen. You were not born Riley. You were grown. Your parents were not refugees. They were geneticists, project leads on the Resurrection Initiative. They took Gabriel's DNA, spliced it, tweaked it, and created a biological host capable of holding his consciousness. Riley shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. No, that's a lie. My parents loved me. I remember them. They stole you, Hale spat. They were traitors. They realized that once Gabriel was uploaded into you, the Riley personality would be overwritten, erased. So they ran. They tried to hide you on a refugee ship. I simply corrected their error. You killed them, Riley whispered. The memory of the fire, the explosion. It wasn't an accident. It was a retrieval mission. I eliminated thieves, Hale said, and now I am offering you a choice, a chance to matter. The hologram shifted. It showed images of the station of the corrupt officers of the people who had spat on Riley when she was homeless. "You hate them, don't you?" Hale purred. "The people who looked through you. The people who let you starve. You have so much anger inside you, Riley. I can feel it. Connect to the core. Let Gabriel's power flow into you. You will have the fleet. You will have the guns. You can burn them all. You can take revenge on the whole unfair universe." "Just surrender to the machine," Riley asked, her voice trembling. "Not surrender," Hale said. "Ascend. Become the captain you were meant to be. Join me, and I will let you pick the targets. Anyone who ever hurt you, gone, in a blink." The temptation hit Riley like a physical blow. The rage she had carried for 5 years, the cold nights, the hunger, the humiliation roared to the surface. She looked at the pod. She could step in. She could become a god. She could burn Hale. She could burn the station. She took a step toward the machine. "Riley!" Terran shouted. He lunged forward, grabbing her shoulder. The energy field around the core crackled, shocking him, throwing him back against the wall. He groaned, sliding down smoke rising from his robes. "Don't listen to her!" Terran rasped, clutching his chest. "If you let her decide who you hate, you are not taking revenge. You are just being her weapon. You are just a gun with a heartbeat." Riley froze. She looked at Terran. He was hurt. He was bleeding blue blood onto the white floor. He had followed her into hell, not because she was a weapon, but because she was Riley. She looked back at the hologram of Hale. "You are right," Riley said. Her voice was quiet, steady. "I do have a lot of anger." She walked up to the pod. She placed her hand on the glass. "But Gabriel Stone didn't build this for you, Hale. And he didn't build it to create a puppet." "What are you doing?" Hale's hologram flickered, sudden uncertainty in her voice. "Step away from the interface, Hearth," Riley said. "Are you still there?" "Barely," the AI whispered in her mind. "Sapling, if you go in there, if the integration fails, it will swallow you. I do not know if I can pull you back out." "Life has already swallowed me, Hearth," Riley said, a sad, crooked smile touching her lips. "It chewed me up and spat me out on the street. I think it is time I swallowed back." She didn't wait for permission. She grabbed the manual release lever on the side of the pod and yanked it down. With a hiss of escaping gas, the glass lid opened. The fluid drained away, leaving a space just big enough for a human form. "Stop her!" Hale screamed to her unseen minions. "Blow the core, destroy the room." "Too late," Riley said. She stepped into the pod. The cables snaked out, automatically latching onto the ports in the flight suit, finding the neural interface at the base of her skull. She looked at Terran one last time. "Don't let me get lost," she said. And then the machine closed. Darkness took her. It wasn't like falling asleep. It was like falling into a star. Riley screamed, but she had no mouth. Her mind was ripped out of her body, stretched across 1,000,000 miles of fiber optic cable. She felt the ship's hull as her own skin. She felt the reactor as her own beating heart. And she felt him, Gabriel Stone. He wasn't a ghost. He was a mountain of data, a tsunami of memories. She saw wars she hadn't fought. She felt the recoil of cannons she had never fired. She felt the grief of losing friends she had never met. The sheer weight of his personality crashed into her, threatening to wipe away the small, fragile thing that was Riley Stone. "You are me," the presence thundered. "Accept the legacy. Accept the command." It was seductive. To stop being a scared girl. To become a legend. To let Gabriel take the wheel. No, Riley thought. She planted her feet, her mental feet firmly, in the digital storm. "I am not you." She summoned her own memories. The taste of nutrient paste. The cold of the ventilation shafts. The way Terran looked at her when he thought she wasn't looking. The feel of the wrench in her hand. "My name is Riley," she shouted into the void. "I am the one who survived when you were dead. I am the one who fixed the pipes. I am the one who walked barefoot into the lion's den. The presence of Gabriel paused. It swirled around her, examining these jagged, rough shards of a life lived in the gutter. And then, unexpectedly, the mountain of data laughed. It was a warm, gravelly sound. "You are stubborn," Gabriel's voice echoed. "Good. I don't want to erase you," Riley thought. "But I am driving." "Then drive," Gabriel replied. "Show me what you can do, kid." The two minds, the old warrior and the young survivor, slammed together. They didn't overwrite each other. They fused. On the bridge, the screens went black. The red alert lights died. For a terrifying second, the Hearth Star was completely dark. Then, the main monitor flared to life. But it wasn't the tactical grid. It was an eye. A single digital eye that burned with a fierce golden fire. The automated turrets on the station stopped their rotation. They shuddered then, slowly, agonizingly tilted upward, aiming harmlessly into deep space. "Targeting sequence aborted," the operations officer whispered, staring at his console in disbelief. "The override came from the ship. It's a prime-level authorization." "Who signed it?" Hale whispered, backing away from the screen. "Who signed the transfer?" A voice boomed through the speakers. It wasn't Gabriel. It wasn't just Riley. It was something new, something harmonious and terrifying. "Identity confirmed," the voice said. "Captain Riley Stone, command restored." On the screen, a new message scrolled across the bottom, overriding Hale's bureau codes. "Status active. Orders get off my ship." Hale turned to run, but the doors to the bridge locked with a heavy thud. From the ventilation shaft, a very scorched, very angry Nerethi diplomat climbed out, followed by a squad of grease-covered engineers, led by Amira Cole. Amira leveled her plasma cutter at Hale's chest. "I believe," Amira said, smiling grimly, "the captain asked you to leave." But Riley wasn't done. Deep in the core, suspended in the fluid, Riley's eyes snapped open. They didn't look human anymore. They glowed with the shifting blue light of the data stream. She reached out with her mind, grabbed the station's defense grid, and squeezed. "Now," Riley whispered, her voice echoing in the minds of everyone connected to the network. "Let's clean up this mess." She didn't just stop the guns. She locked down every mercenary ship in the sector. She turned off their engines. She disabled their weapons. She turned the mighty fleet of the Bureau into drifting metal coffins. She could have blown them up. The rage was there, pulsing in the back of her mind, fueled by Gabriel's memories of betrayal and her own memories of loss. Hale was right there. A thought, a single command, and the bridge would decompress, sucking the woman who killed her parents into the void. It would be so easy. It would be justice. "Do it," the darker part of Gabriel's memory whispered. "They deserve it." Riley looked through the ship's internal sensors. She saw Terran leaning against the wall, breathing hard, watching the screen with hope. She saw Amira holding the line. She saw the mechanics who had fought for her. If she killed Hale now, she became exactly what Hale said she was: a weapon. No, Riley thought. I am not a weapon. I am a captain. She isolated Hale's shuttle on the landing pad. She didn't destroy it. She disabled the hyperdrive and locked the navigation computer to a single destination, the Central Alliance Court on Prime. "Morgan Hale!" Riley's voice boomed through the bridge, amplified by the ship. "You are relieved of duty. You will proceed to your shuttle. You will fly directly to Prime. And you will explain to the High Council why you tried to start a war to cover up a murder." Hale stared at the ceiling, her composure finally shattering. She screamed, a sound of pure, impotent fury. Riley disconnected from the core. The fluid drained. The pod opened. She fell out wet, shivering and gasping for air. Terran was there, instantly catching her before she hit the floor. "I got you," he whispered, wrapping his scorched robe around her. "I got you." Riley looked up at him. Her eyes were fading back to their normal brown, but there was a depth to them now that hadn't been there before. A weight. "Did we win?" she rasped. Terran looked at the hologram of the fleet, drifting peacefully in the dark. Yes, Captain, he smiled. We won. The darkness was not empty. It was heavy, viscous, and loud. Riley Stone floated in a space that was neither up nor down. It was a boundless expanse of blinding white, stripped of shadow and horizon. She tried to breathe, but she had no lungs. She tried to scream, but she had no mouth. She was nothing but a point of awareness suspended in a data stream that roared like a hurricane. Then, the images began to strike her. They did not come as memories usually did, soft and hazy at the edges. They hit her, with the violence of physical blows. She was standing on the bridge of a burning starship, the smell of ozone and seared flesh filling her nostrils. She was holding a glass of amber whiskey, the taste sharp and smoky on her tongue, celebrating a victory that felt like ash. She was looking at a map of the Centauri system, deciding which moon to sacrifice to save the fleet. I am not doing this, Riley thought, her mental voice sounding thin against the roar. I have never been to Centauri. We have, a voice answered. It was deep, resonant, and terrifyingly familiar. We were there when the blockade fell. A figure materialized in the white void. It was not a ghost. It was a construct of hard light and binary code resolving into the shape of a man. He wore a dress uniform from 40 years ago, the collar unbuttoned, a scar running down his left cheek. Captain Gabriel Stone looked at her. He did not look at her with the warmth of a grandfather. He looked at her with the critical, assessing gaze of an officer inspecting a weapon. You are late, the construct said. I expected the integration to happen 10 years ago. Riley tried to back away, but in this space movement was a matter of will, not muscles. Who are you? I am the captain, the figure replied. And so are you. The white void shifted. Suddenly, Riley was watching a scene from a laboratory. She saw a glass tank, filled with amber fluid. Inside, a fetus was floating. She saw two people in white coats arguing. She recognized them. They were the faces from her nightmares, the parents, who had died in the fire. We cannot do it, the woman in the white coat whispered. It is monstrous. He wants to overwrite the child. He wants to use the body as a hard drive. Hale will kill us if we stop, the man replied, his hands shaking. The project is already authorized. Gabriel Stone is dying. They need a vessel for his tactical genius. They need a continuation. Then we steal it, the woman said, placing her hand on the glass tank. We take the embryo. We run. We let her grow up. We let her be a person, not a suit of clothes for a dead man. Riley watched the memory shatter. The truth hit her with the force of a gravity hammer. She was not just a granddaughter who had inherited a watch. She was the project. Her genetic code had been sculpted, her neural pathways pruned and expanded before birth to ensure they were compatible with the digital imprint of Gabriel Stone. The analog key in the watch wasn't just a password. It was the boot disk. You are the vessel, the construct of Gabriel said, stepping closer. You were built to hold the weight of command. My memories, my instincts, my will. Accept it. Let the boyish girl from the streets fade away. She was just a placeholder. Riley felt a pressure on her mind like a vice tightening. The data was trying to flood in to overwrite the Riley partition. It offered her tactical brilliance. It offered her freedom from fear. All she had to do was stop fighting. Stop being Riley. No. The thought was small, but it was sharp. I said no. Riley visualized the things that made her who she was. The cold metal of the ventilation shaft against her back. The taste of the stale nutrient paste she had shared with a stray cat on the station. The way Taryn's hand felt in hers, cool, smooth, and alien. The anger she felt when Hale sneered at her. These are mine, Riley shouted into the void. You do not get to delete them. The Gabriel construct frowned. You are weak. You are a scavenger. You cannot lead a fleet. I survived, Riley countered her mental projection, standing up to the giant. You died, Gabriel. You lost. You let them turn you into a ghost in a machine. I lived. I ate trash and dodged security drones and fixed pipes that your precious engineers were too proud to touch. That is not weakness. That is survival. She stepped forward, grabbing the lapels of the construct's uniform. I am not your suit, she hissed. And I am not your tomb. If you want to save this ship, you do not get to drive. You get to ride in the passenger seat. I am the captain now. The construct stared at her. For a long, agonizing second, the pressure increased. Then the scar on Gabriel's cheek crinkled. He smiled. Stubborn, Gabriel said. Arrogant, disrespectful. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Perfect. System alert. A mechanical voice boomed through the white space. Identity conflict detected. Please verify. Are you Captain Gabriel Stone? Riley looked up at the void. She felt the two rivers of consciousness, the ancient war-hardened tactician and the scrappy, furious street survivor crashing together. They didn't blend into gray. They swirled like oil and water, distinct, but occupying the same vessel. I am the one who will take responsibility for this ship, Riley shouted, her voice shaking the digital foundations. Call me Riley. Call me Captain. Call me the nightmare of the Bureau. Just give me the damn keys. Identity confirmed, Captain Riley Stone. Neural sync at 100%. The white void shattered. Sensations returned in a rush of pain and noise. Riley gasped, her body arching as the neural cables retracted from her skull. The fluid in the pod drained away with a harsh gurgle. The glass front of the existential core hissed and slid open. She fell out onto the cold metal floor, coughing up translucent liquid. She was wet, shivering, and her head felt like it had been split open with an axe. Riley, Terran was there instantly. He wrapped his scorched diplomatic robe around her shaking shoulders. His multifaceted eyes were wide with panic. Are you, Terran asked, gripping her arms. Or are you him? Riley wiped the fluid from her eyes. She looked at Terran. She saw the concern in his face, but she also saw the tactical layout of the room, the structural weakness of the doorframe, and the precise energy yield of the weapon in his belt. She knew things she hadn't known 5 minutes ago, but she also knew she loved the way his voice cracked when he was scared. I am me, Riley rasped. Her voice was deeper, harder. I am just more of me. The ship, Hearth's voice screamed from the overhead speakers. Sapling Captain, whatever you are, Hale has locked the firing sequence. The station cannons are 3 seconds from discharge. Riley stood up. She didn't stumble. She moved with a terrifying predatory grace. She closed her eyes and reached out, not with her hands, but with her mind. The connection to the ship was no longer clumsy. It was absolute. She could feel the Hearthstar like her own body. The engines were her legs. The sensors were her eyes. And the interface to the sector defense grid was right there, waiting for a command. Link me, Riley ordered. Linking, Hearth replied. On the bridge of the Hearthstar decks above, Morgan Hale was screaming at her technicians. Fire! Hale shrieked. Override the safety, burn those ships. The massive cannons on the Horizon Spindle Station shuddered. The energy capacitors reached peak charge. The barrels glowed white-hot, aimed directly at the defenseless Nerethi diplomatic cruisers. And then they moved. It was not a slow adjustment. It was a violent mechanical snap. The massive turrets weighing thousands of tons pivoted upward with a groan of tortured metal. They bypassed the alien ships. They bypassed the station's own solar arrays. They aimed directly into the empty black void of deep space. Override accepted, the station's computer announced calmly. Authorization, Captain Stone. No, Hale gasped, backing away from the main screen. Discharge, Riley whispered in the core room. The cannons fired. 3 beams of pure plasma energy erupted from the station, screaming harmlessly into the darkness. The recoil shook the entire spindle, knocking dignitaries to the floor. The sky lit up with a blinding flash of violet light, a harmless firework display that cost billions of credits. On the bridge, the screens changed. The red targeting borders vanished, replaced by a calm, authoritative blue. A message scrolled across every monitor in the fleet. Sector Defense Grid secure. Command Authority Hearthstar. Status Peacekeeping Mode engaged. She did it, General Kale whispered, lowering his weapon. He looked at Hale. She locked you out. Completely. Hale's face was a mask of pure terror. She realized with a sinking feeling in her gut that she had not just failed. She had succeeded in the worst possible way. She had resurrected Gabriel Stone, and she had given him a new body that was younger, angrier, and completely outside her control. "Get me to the shuttle," Hale hissed to her remaining mercenaries. Now, down in the core, Riley opened her eyes. They glowed with a faint, residual golden light. "She is running," Riley said. "Let her go," Taryn said, trying to steady her. "We won. The fleet is safe." Riley turned her head. She could see the shuttle bay through the ship's internal sensors. She saw Hale, sprinting across the deck, shoving her own subordinates out of the way to get to the escape craft. A cold, dark anger surged in Riley's chest. It was the memory of the fire on the Exodus Star, the sound of her mother screaming, the years of eating garbage while Hale lived in a palace. Kill her, the Gabriel part of her mind whispered. She is a threat. Threats must be neutralized. Vent the bay. Crush the shuttle. Do it. Riley raised her hand. The ship responded to her will. The airlock controls on the shuttle bay highlighted in her mind. One thought. Just one thought, and Morgan Hale would be sucked into the vacuum, her blood boiling in the cold. It would be justice. It would be balance. Riley's fingers curled into a fist. Taryn watched her. He didn't speak. He didn't try to stop her. He just stood there, witnessing. Riley looked at the hologram of the fleeing woman. Then, she looked at Taryn. She saw the fear in his eyes, not fear of her, but fear for her. Fear that the girl he admired was about to vanish, replaced by a killer. Riley took a deep breath. She unclenched her fist. No, she told the ghost in her head. That is the easy way. I don't do easy. Hearth, Riley said, her voice steady. Target the shuttle's main thruster assembly. Use the ion cannon. Low yield. Surgical strike. With pleasure, Captain, Hearth replied. On the hull of the Hearthstar, a small turret rotated. It fired a single blue pulse of ionized energy. The beam struck Hale's shuttle just as it lifted off the pad. There was no explosion, no fireball. The shuttle simply died. Its engines cut out. Its lights went dark. It dropped 10 feet back onto the deck with a heavy, humiliating clang. Disable the door locks on the shuttle, Riley ordered, and broadcast a message to station security. Tell them I have a package for them. Evidence of conspiracy, attempted murder, and high treason. I am uploading the files from Hale's personal server now. Uploading, Hearth said. Oh, this is juicy. She was embezzling from the orphan fund. That is delightfully cliché. In the core room, Riley slumped against the wall, the adrenaline finally fading. Taryn let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 10 minutes. You didn't kill her, Taryn said softly. I wanted to, Riley admitted. She looked at her hands. They were trembling. I really wanted to, but Gabriel would have killed her. He would have justified it as a tactical necessity. If I did it, I would just be him. She looked up at Taryn, a tired, crooked smile touching her lips. I want her to rot in a cell, Taryn. I want her to lose everything slowly. I want her to know that a street rat took her down without shedding a drop of blood. That hurts more than dying, Taryn laughed. It was a relieved clicking sound. Remind me never to make you angry, Riley Stone. Your mercy is more terrifying than your wrath. The aftermath was not a parade. It was a negotiation. 2 days later, the observation deck of the Hearthstar was filled with delegates. The Nerethi ambassador, a towering figure of shimmering light, stood opposite the interim station commander. Riley stood by the window, looking out at the stars. She wore a new uniform, one that actually fit. It was simple, devoid of the heavy metals Gabriel used to wear. On her wrist, the analog watch ticked steadily. "The Bureau demands the return of the ship," the station commander said, though his voice lacked conviction. "It is a military asset." "The ship belongs to the Stone Line," the Narithi ambassador interrupted his voice, like chiming glass. "And Captain Stone has saved our delegation from an unprovoked attack. We formally recognize the Hearthstar as a sovereign entity. If the Alliance attempts to seize it, the Narithi will consider it an act of aggression." Furthermore, Terran stepped forward, holding a datapad. "We propose a new initiative. The Hearthstar has proven it can interface with both Alliance and non-aligned defense grids. We suggest it be designated as a neutral, peacekeeping vessel, a guardian of the trade routes answerable, not to a government, but to the treaty itself," the room murmured. It was unheard of. A rogue ship commanded by a teenager policing the border. "And who guarantees this ship won't go rogue?" the commander asked. Riley turned from the window. The room went silent. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. She had the presence of a veteran commander in the body of a young woman. "I do," Riley said. "I have the codes to shut down your entire grid, Commander. I could have done it yesterday. I didn't. That is your guarantee." She walked to the table and placed her hand on the surface. "I am not fighting for the Alliance," she said. "And I am not fighting for the Bureau. I am fighting for the ships that don't have guns. I am fighting for the refugees on the transport vessels. I am fighting for the people you forget." She looked at Terran. "Take the deal," Riley said. "Or I take the ship and leave. And I take the defense codes with me." The commander looked at the Narithi ambassador, who was nodding in approval. He looked at the hologram of Morgan Hale being led away in handcuffs on the newsfeed. He sighed. "Agreed," the commander said. "On a probationary basis." Later that evening, the ship was quiet. The dignitaries had left. The Hearthstar was preparing to undock. Riley and Terran sat on the floor of the observation deck, sharing a bottle of expensive wine that Terran had liberated from Hale's private stash. "It tastes like grapes and pretentiousness," Riley said, taking a sip. "It costs 3,000 credits a bottle," Terran noted. "Try to enjoy the pretentiousness." Riley swirled the liquid in her glass. "Terran, I have to ask you something, and you have to promise not to laugh." "I am a diplomat," Terran said. "I am professionally incapable of laughter." Riley looked down at the floor. "Am I weird? I mean inside? I have these memories, Terran. I know how to strip a pulse rifle blindfolded. I know the smell of a specific bar on a moon that was destroyed 20 years ago. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I expect to see a scar on my face." She looked up at him, her eyes vulnerable. "If we do this, go somewhere. Are you dating me, or are you dating a recycled old man?" Terran set his glass down. He turned his body toward her, his movements deliberate and graceful. "Riley," he said softly, "the memories are data. The choices are yours. Gabriel Stone would have fired on the station. Gabriel Stone would have killed Hale. Gabriel Stone would never have sat on the floor drinking stolen wine with an alien." He reached out and touched her cheek. His skin was cool grounding. "You chose mercy. You chose justice. You chose to be kind when you had every reason to be cruel. That is not an old man's legacy. That is you." Terran smiled, his eyes shifting colors. "Besides, as a Narithi, I carry the memories of 6 ancestors in my head. If we are counting mental age, I am technically 340 years old." "You are robbing the cradle," Riley laughed. It was a genuine bright sound that chased away the shadows of the core. "Okay, 300 years old. I guess I can deal with that." She leaned in, and this time, Hearth did not interrupt. The bridge was buzzing with activity, but it wasn't the frantic panic of the last few days. It was the steady, rhythmic work of a crew that knew their jobs. Amira Cole stood at the engineering station. She looked up as Riley walked onto the bridge. "Captain on deck," Amira barked. The crew snapped to attention. It wasn't the forced salute of conscripts. It was the sharp, proud acknowledgement of veterans welcoming their leader. Riley walked to the center chair. She ran her hand along the worn leather. "At ease," she said. Amira walked over, holding a datapad. "We are fueled and provisioned, Captain. The new crew roster is finalized. A mix of humans and Narithi volunteers. We even have a few miners from the belt who want to sign up." "Good," Riley said. "We are going to need them." "Captain," a young ensign at the helm turned around. He looked nervous. "I served under your grandfather briefly." "Just a cadet cruise." Riley looked at him. The memory surfaced instantly. Ensign Miller dropped a wrench in the reactor casing. Cried for an hour. "I remember you, Miller," Riley said, a small smile playing on her lips. "You owe me a wrench." Miller's jaw dropped. Then he grinned, a wide, beaming expression. "Yes, sir. I mean, ma'am, I mean, Captain." "Just Captain is fine," Riley said. She sat down. The chair didn't feel too big anymore. It felt like it had been waiting for her. "Hearth," Riley said. "Online Captain," the AI replied. The orange flame of his avatar burned brightly on the pedestal. "All systems are nominal. The existential core is sealed and encrypted. No more voices in your head unless you count me, which is frankly a privilege." "Plot a course," Riley said. "Second star to the right and straight on till morning." "That is a fictional navigational reference," Hearth noted. "But I understand the sentiment. Leaving horizon spindle orbit." The massive engines of the Hearthstar rumbled to life. The magnetic clamps released with a heavy thud. The ship drifted away from the station, turning its bow toward the endless sea of stars. "Captain," Hearth said softly. "Protocol requires an entry for the ship's log, to mark the beginning of the new command." Riley looked out at the nebula. She looked at the watch on her wrist. The glass was cracked, the brass was tarnished, but it was ticking. It was moving forward second by second. She thought about the girl who had walked into the docking bay, barefoot, terrified, and alone. She thought about the ghost of the man who had died to save a conscience. And she thought about the woman sitting in the chair now. "Record this," Riley said. She paused, looking at Taryn, who was standing by her side, and Amira, who was watching from the engineering station. "This spaceship is my grandpa's," Riley said, her voice strong and clear. "And mine. And we are not done yet." "Log entry saved," Hearth said. "Engage," Riley ordered. The Hearthstar flared its engines, a streak of defiant blue light, against the dark, and vanished into the slipstream, ready to write its own history.